Complete this sentence. The biggest challenge facing Wyandotte County is blank. Ann Murguia.
Is to stop the declining tax base east of 635.
Okay, how do you do that? If you are mayor now of Wyandotte County, how do you actually do that?
Well, I think Janice alluded to it a little bit in her comment to you, that you start by engaging the people. What I did in the 3rd District in '07 when I was elected is we did a survey. And we surveyed the people specifically about what they wanted to see within their areas. And then you focus on those. You set your priorities and your budget based on what the people of the city want to see, and then you follow through with that.
Okay. The biggest challenge for you, in your estimation, Mark Holland, is what?
The biggest challenge I see is to take the great success we've had with the outgrowth of General Motors and the new growth that's happening down in Fairfax, to take the new KU Cancer Center that's continuing to grow and prosper, to take the new Cerner Corporation, the new casino, all the 6,000 new jobs that have come into Kansas City, Kansas in the last 6 years, and to connect our citizens to those jobs. But not only to connect our citizens to those jobs, but also to take that success and to plant it throughout the community. And we have several examples where there have been a successful economic development, obviously on a smaller scale, but when you get into the neighborhood infrastructure has to include businesses and has to include other things, and we've been able to use some of that success at 78th and State, at 39th and Rainbow, at 18th and I-70. We have a lot of examples of good success where that success has been translated. That's our biggest challenge, is to continue that process of getting it to the rest of the community.
Cordell Meeks, the biggest challenge for you is what?
Economic growth and job growth balance. So we're not going to stop the growth that we have out west. It's tremendous, but we want to leverage that so that we have a balance in the urban core and the eastern part of the city as well. Part of being a political outsider is coming in with new, fresh ideas to accomplish that.
Okay. So we do have this feeling that Western and as outsiders, if anyone who lives in the metropolitan area goes to see those, what I'm going to call those crown jewels, they go to the Nebraska Furniture Mart, they go into the Kansas Speedway, they go into Sporting Kansas City, and yet they don't. People in Wyandotte County are not seeing improvements in the eastern part of the county, in Kansas City, Kansas. Is that a misrepresentation of the facts? Are good things happening in Kansas City, Kansas, in the eastern part of the county? Nathan Barnes?
Absolutely. I think that success should go to all 4 corners of Wyandotte County.
Is it happening now, though?
Yes, to some degree, but not to a satisfactory degree. Absolutely not.
It is not. So the biggest challenge for you is what?
Is to bring that success to all of Wyandotte County.
But you have been on the unified government. You've been there, you have been there even as a city councilman.
Yes.
Beforehand, the longest person on this particular panel. Why weren't you able to do that as a councilman?
Well, because one, we had to create a vehicle first to save Wyandotte County as a whole. And once we save the county, then we can start branching out from there. Wyandotte County's back was against the wall several years ago when we had to make some very critical decisions as to what can we do to save our dwindling tax base. And we did that, and we did a very good job of it. And there's a process to doing this, and it doesn't happen overnight.
How would you do it as mayor?
How would I do it as mayor? Well, I would focus on the urban core, but I would utilize a different type of developer that specializes in urban core redevelopment. And there are people all around the country that specialize in developing or redeveloping the urban core, and all we have to do is to duplicate that same process that we did in the western edge of our community. We can do it in the urban core, and we can do that with a special type of developer to bring that development here, and it'll be just as successful on the eastern portion of our community as we have been in the western portion. You just need a different type of developer to bring those goods and services to our community.
Janice, you were the one who brought this up to begin with. So you're now mayor of Wyandotte County. How do you actually address that problem? How would you actually fix that as mayor?
Well, first of all, I don't think that we need to repeat failures. We can look at the legends all day and say that it has been a raving success when it has not. It bankrupted, let's be honest. It bankrupted and went on an open auction.
Okay. But you're talking a lot about problems. What would you do to actually fix it, though?
This is what I'm saying. I would not repeat the same. Number one, we need to bring the people into this whole conversation. Once we bring the people into the conversation and find out what the people's needs and wants are, then we can figure out what our means are to make that happen. The most important thing that we need right now in Wyandotte County is a change in customer service and a change of access and accountability from our leaders. If you want to know how I'm going to make the East grow, we're going to service the people in the East. Right now, there is no grocery store in the East. There hasn't been one there, a viable one, for many years. And when the one that...
The Sunfresh market that was built, that you don't consider that in the East?
No, that's not considered in the Northeast.
Okay.
Not at all. That's kind of what the problem is that we've become segmented. If you're asking me how do I bring it back, how do I make us a city? I make us a city by going back, I make us whole by returning our concept of community. We've become districtized, and everybody wants what's best for them, and we need to do what's best for the entire city.
Who has a concrete example of something that would actually really do as mayor to actually redress the imbalance, as some people perceive, between what's happened on the western side of the county and what some people believe are the infrastructure problems, the lack of investment in Kansas City, Kansas, and the eastern edge of the county? Ann McGeer.
I'll be glad to answer that.
Okay.
I do have, I'll give you this, and you can keep that. In the past 8 years, and that's what I have the data for, our tax base east of 635 has diminished by leaps and bounds. There has been no improvement there. In fact, the tax base east of 635 is diminishing at a faster rate than we are growing Western Wyandotte County. Now, I just wanted to clear up that fact, and here's the map from the Unified Government to demonstrate that. What, as I said in the beginning, is what my experience and results and what I've been able to do in the Argentine neighborhood is exactly what I would take to this area, this downtown and eastern portion of the city. What it's going to take is a leader that's willing to roll up their sleeves and work directly with the people, engage them in what is important to them, partner with private business and government, have public-private partnerships. It's very critical. It's an example of what we've already done with in the Argentine community.
Okay, you also say you have an answer. How is your solution different than Ann McGeer's, Mark Holland?
Well, I think the key is we have to use different formulas in different parts of the city. You know, in an ideal world, the private sector takes care of the growth and development in an area, both in housing and retail and industrial. In an urban area, you have to have more tools, and you have to seed that with a partnership. It's not just greenfield development. I mean, that's why there's urban sprawl across the country, because it's easier to develop outside the city limits than inside. And inside takes additional tools. It takes a unified government vision of what we'd like to see. The grocery store is an excellent example. We've opened 4 new grocery stores, the first 4 new grocery stores in the last 30 years in Kansas City, Kansas. And that kind of development has come because we've listened to the community, seen where the need is, and then we've done a request for proposals to bring in developers and offer development tools to actually make it happen. And so I think the example would be to continue to identify the strategic areas in our community that are going to grow first, like 18th and I-70, like 39th and Rainbow, like 78th and State. We need to get that synergy in the far northeast. And we've identified some areas where we're looking at bringing a grocery store, and then other things start to develop around it.
Cordell Meeks.
Nick, right away, as mayor, I'm going to prioritize education. Okay, I received a wonderful education at Sumner Academy of Arts and Sciences. I realized that the better education you receive, the more opportunities that are going to be available for you. And quite frankly, it's tied into economic development, job growth, infrastructure, public safety. If we don't raise the excellence of education in our city here, we won't be competitive to take on these new jobs that we have here. So I've already pledged immediately in my campaign to support the school district in its effort to increase excellence in the school district.
So you think that is part of the solution there to improving what is happening in the eastern part of the county?
Most definitely.
Okay. Nathan?
I would agree with all of the things that have been said, but what really has to happen is that there has to be a charge. Someone has to lead the charge, and the charge means that we have a long-term investment or a long-term commitment to a community. And that's what I've been fighting for all the years I've been there, is to get that long-term commitment. And then the other thing, without trying not to be very critical, is that we have to learn how to do business with for-profit entities. We have mastered the art of doing business with not-for-profits. The part that we struggle with, when I say we, at City Hall, our staff, we haven't been able to master the art of dealing with for-profit entities. And they've been in our community, they're waiting to come in our community, but we just don't have the blueprint for dealing with them. And I know what needs to happen in order to make that public-private relationship work. We just haven't implemented
I do want to
it.
move on, but quickly then, Janice, before we move on to the next topic.
Missouri is a perfect lead for us. Missouri has taken arts and culture and absolutely opened up its community. The conservatory, how many things have we heard about the conservatory and the new Kaufman auditorium? The thing is that our community consists of a lot of diversity. We have to bring that together and stop spreading it so broad. But we've got small businesses that can utilize the Northeast who are willing to, small businesses, not major corporations, who are willing to utilize the Northeast but can't afford to do business in our county because commercial property tax in our county is 4.4%, whereas it's 2.2% across the state. They can't afford. Our businesses are leaving. Like, there are tons of small businesses that would love to blow into the Northeast and make house there.